And then finally, the part that you liked the best, I think, out of my 5 pillars was posture and having proper posture. Because structure is function. If you don't have good structure, you can't have good function. Ultimately, it will falter. It's like getting in the carriage, and having that horse drive the cart and finding out that you don't have the reins. You're not going to go very far in life. So you have to have all those pieces of the puzzle. They're part of the pie. They're part of, however, the puzzle, whatever it is that you need it to be. And some of those pieces are a little bit bigger than others, but they're all equally important in the big game plan of life.
Hello, my friend. Welcome to Something for Everybody. My name is Aaron Machbitz. Dr. Pat, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I really enjoy being here. And I loved our pre-show chat so far, and I'm looking forward to a great show with you and sharing some great information with your people.
Yeah, I'm very excited to have you on and hear your expertise and insight on many different things. But before we get into that, I have a very important question to ask you, the most important question I'll ask you, and that is, how are you doing, Dr. Pat? Like, really, how are you doing?
Well, on a 1 to 10, I would tell you today, at this time of day, I'm probably doing like an 8.7.
Why?
Well, probably because I started my day at 5:30, and now it's 3:20 in the afternoon for me, and I've had no breaks. And a very little one to grab something to eat. And then I got back on and I have a lot of podcasts today. So this has been a long day for me in that regard. I'm used to moving a lot more. So on that, but mentally I feel sharp as a tack. And I'm probably going to go to sleep early tonight. I practice the Benjamin Franklin routine, early to bed, early to rise.
Are you someone who always wakes up early?
Generally speaking, I usually get up. I have a ritual that I do every day, and one of the things I do is when I first get up, I listen to meditation music, or I listen to a meditation, or I roll over and throw the covers back over me, and I set my timer so I don't go back to sleep. And usually I'm a very good sleeper. But last night there was somebody who moved into the condo below where I'm living at right now, so it was a little bit noisy till later. So perhaps I didn't get the quality sleep that I could have got normally. But I usually sleep very, very well. But maybe like a 9 now that I'm talking about it. But I feel pretty good. I mean, I feel consistently good.
Wow.
Now that I justified it. Just I can move on.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that all the stuff we're going to talk about, including your 5 pillars of health, are going to be some of the reasons why that you feel so good on a consistent basis. But before we get into that, I want to just touch on your morning routine a little bit more. Are there any other rituals or things that you have to do on your AM routine?
Within the first hour of waking up, I have a minimum of 16 ounces of water. So I either have it sometimes by itself. Sometimes I have a green drink, which I showed you. This is I put it in my AG1. This actually is AG1. But it has a touch of coffee in it. And it has a little collagen in it also. And I shake that up. But I have 2 of these a day. And then I have, I just had a little coffee before I came back on. I like to have coffee as a treat in the afternoon. So I'm a frother. I like frothy coffee. And, and it puts me, it's peaceful for me. I don't look at it. I'm a coffee snob. So I drink only really specific kinds of coffee. And I drink water throughout the day. So I have approximately close to 70 to 65 to 75 ounces of water a day.
Mhm.
And that's what I basically do. And then the other thing I do on that ritual is I walk. I get up and go down and look for where I live at right now is very close to the Intercoastal in Florida. And in the Intercoastal in Florida, there's, if you're lucky, when it's one of your lucky days, you get to see dolphins and manatees. And so I always go down and look for them first thing in the morning to sit there and collect my thoughts for the day. Text message, whoever I've got a text message, and then I'm 10 minutes to short 10 minutes back to where I'm at, and then I'm on a call at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I usually am going from there. But today, Mondays, I have calls starting at 8 o'clock in the morning and meetings. It's good.
So your morning routine absolutely consists of meditation, some movement, some hydration, basically. Those are the three most important things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
And if I end up, this is a funny thing that I do, or maybe not so funny. If I wake up and I'm not in a good mood, instead of going for that walk, I'll hop in the shower. And then I always finish shower, especially down here, it's easy to do. No water is like super cold, but I finish the shower usually with cold water for about 30 to 45 seconds.
I have found the cold shower to be extremely beneficial in the morning. I really like it.
You know what I would like to have or like to do? I haven't done it, but I keep on seeing it keeps on crossing my, interest path is going into a cryo booth.
Oh, yeah.
Have you done one of those? Have you done one of those?
I have not. I've just done like the ice baths and the cold plunge and the cold showers, but not any cryotherapy, no.
Well, these are booths that you walk into, and it's like 50, you start out higher temperature, and higher I mean like 5 below zero, and you've got gloves on to protect your feet and your hands, but you're basically you're in a robe, perhaps. And I've had a friend of mine who said he had pain for years, and he did 2 sessions and he was absolutely with no pain. So
Really?
It's one of those things that being my background in chiropractic, that anything's possible. I just think, let's go do it. let's go try. I would love to go in one just to see how cold is for that. You should do it.
Well,
we can report back.
I lived in South Dakota for 4 years, so I feel like I lived in cryotherapy for 4 years. So. And I feel pretty good. And I feel pretty good.
You had your dose. Of cryotherapy.
It's lasted
I grew up in Michigan.
It's lasted me a while. Yeah.
I grew up in Michigan, but I think when you go into some of those modalities like that, it's a different experience, and it's very measured. So you're not in there. You're not in there for. Unobserved. Somebody's there like watching how many minutes you are in there, and which should be like that, or it should be set to turn off automatically. But I don't know. My friends said they ended up going into 20 below Fahrenheit, and I just went like, wow, is that cold?
Yes.
But it's your mindset, right? That's part of your big conception of health, is that you've got to have a strong mind. You have to have good character. You have to have a strong mind, and that it's crucial to master your thoughts, because thoughts is one of the reasons why people get sick.
Yes, and now we're getting into it here, Dr. Pat. So I was just scrolling through all of the information that you post on the internet, and one of the things that resonated mostly with me was these 5 pillars of health. One, because I talk about this sort of foundational piece that we have to have when it comes to sort of living our best life. Because a lot of times in the internet now, currently, it's like all of these hacks and tricks and things and hooplas and this. And it's like people aren't sticking to the simple yet challenging stuff that has worked over long periods of time. And so for me, I tell people to eat well, move well, sleep well, and think well. Yeah, there's a lot of things that go into those things, but if you just think at it of those 4 things, it can become more manageable instead of trying this sort of overwhelming piece that can take over your whole life and not knowing where to start and how to start, and then never actually starting, and then being sort of stuck in the place that you're at. And then you've sort of tweaked that to make it your own into your 5 pillars of health, which are the positive mental attitude, diet or nutrition, exercise, sleep, and I like number 5, which is posture, which I believe is incredibly important in terms for our body language and how we present to the world and how we show ourselves to the world. So I'd like to just break down each one of those so people can get a better idea of how to incorporate that into their life.
Well, I'm curious before I start that. If you considered yourself having, a fine-tuned engine as a body, what do you think you're driving? Driving a jalopy, Mustang? Are you driving a Lexus or Ferrari?
Like myself?
Yeah, just curious.
I'm driving a Ferrari.
My kind of guy. And, the reason why I ask that is because people have a misconception about what health is and what health isn't. And a lot of times people have a tendency to put the cart before the horse. And then the idea, they want to do it so fast that they want to get all those pieces of the puzzle together as fast as possible when there's no process, doesn't require time, and there's no magic pill. So when they actually get the cart before the horse, and they leave it there, they're expecting the horse maybe to push it. But you have to take the horse and put it in front of the cart, then attach it, then get in the driver's seat, and you got to know how to drive the cart, and you got to know how to control the horse. And when you know how to do that, you can have stellar health. So I always ask why, if people, what kind of car are they driving for a body? And then, diving into what health is, the typical dictionary says it's when your organs are functioning 100% of the time. Unfortunately, we don't know that. We don't know if there is something mishap. It's like a Swiss watch. When one of the wheels kind of goes awry, it can start going awry and start affecting the function of the watch, and you wouldn't know that until quite a while longer, unless there was a complete break, which would be like a heart attack, and it just stops working. So when you're looking at what health is, under that definition, it's very misleading. And then the World Health Organization said it's not merely the absence of disease or infirmities, which I wholeheartedly agree, because you can have something going on and not know. It's like an iceberg. It's like what happened during the pandemic with all these people who were absolutely sick. And I always used to say before the pandemic, there were a lot more people sick that didn't know it. And I preached that quite frequently. And I always was ostracized, or somebody wanted to say well, how do you know that? Well, the World Health Organization knew it because in 1986, they updated their definition so that it also included your environment and not just the idea of being healthy, but also your aspirations for what health is. So in order to break that whole 2 pieces of the puzzle down is when I made the 5 pillars of health. And so the first one we talked to about diet and nutrition. You can have good nutrition, but you're not going to have a good diet. And so eating things, they've got to be synergistic to each other, and then you can have proper exercise, and what is it? What is proper exercise and that motion that you want to get into? And then sleep is essential. In order to get a good night's sleep, you can get the rest that you need and revitalize for the future, hit the ground running the next day, so that your brain detoxes, your body detoxes during the middle of the night, and you wake up restored. We all know that. If you're a woman and you are over the age of 30, or somewhere 30, 35, and you don't get a good night's sleep, you look haggard. You look like you haven't had a good night's sleep. And you can see it in your skin. It's almost instantaneous. Guys never see that stuff because they have thicker skin or whatever, but I don't see that, and a lot of men are well put together until they're usually around 40 years old. And then I perpetually, in my last 38 years, always see men starting to have more complaints coming in, because sickness does not happen overnight unless it's traumatic. And so in my book, Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired, it addresses that. But back to the sleep part, then you have to have positive mental attitude and positive mindset. If you don't have a positive mindset and you don't have a positive mental attitude, then it makes it a lot harder to stay on your diet. It makes it a lot harder to get your butt out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning or 5:30 or 6:30 and go to the gym and do whatever you want to do to move, even if it's to walk around your neighborhood. you know, and you have to have that component of mindset in place. It can be a game changer about whether or not you're successful. So having those superior wellness initiatives plus the positive mindset and positive wellness leads to success physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially, and financially. You cannot make good decisions if you can't think straight. And wherever the mind goes, the body follows. And then finally, the part that you like the best, I think, out of my 5 pillars was posture and having proper posture, because structure is function. If you don't have good structure, you can't have good function. Ultimately, it will falter. It's like getting in the carriage, and having that horse drive the cart and finding out that you don't have the reins. You're not going to go very far in life. So you have to have all those pieces of the puzzle. They're part of the pie. They're part of, however, the puzzle, whatever it is that you need it to be. And some of those pieces are a little bit bigger than others, but they're all equally important in the big game plan of life and how to get farther ahead. So is there a specific question you would like to delve? I know that you were so interested in that aspect of that. And I love talking about that. So.
Yeah, I want to talk about positive mental attitude because obviously when we're dealing with life, not everything is positive. And so how do you view that aspect of accepting the things that happen to us that are unpredictable or unfortunate or traumatic, and then framing that sort of in a way that can be maybe used as fuel or as growth, or accepting that fact and still sort of having that idea of a positive mental attitude or positive mental wellness?
Well, one thing that comes to mind when you talk about that, I immediately want to go talk about the 3 brains. And the 3 brains I talk to are the lizard brain, the mammalian brain, and the conscious brain. And so the lizard brain is the one that is your hero, the one that saves you from the saber-toothed tiger, the guy who's pulling in front of your car and you're slamming on the brakes. You want that brain to work for that purpose, but you do not want that brain to take over the mammalian brain and keep on telling you that you can't do something and keep on setting you up for sabotage again and again and again and again and again. And so when the mammalian brain's job is to store all actions that have happened to you in your life, and you store those emotions that go along with that event. So if you grew up hearing your parents argue about money, then that gets anchored somewhere along the line in the mammalian brain. So every time some things get set up, the lizard brain has the mammalian brain set it up so you're not successful. And you trip on the same thing again and again, which is insanity to keep on doing the same stuff over and over again. And so when people can realize that they have to, in order to have control of the mammalian brain, you have to go to your conscious brain. And that's why you say affirmations, because affirmations are what you do when you're awake. Like right now, I am healthy, I am vital, I'm active, I'm a successful human being. On this day, I give myself unselfishly to help others. That's telling my conscious brain, telling the mammalian brain to store that as a positive experience. And then telling the lizard brain, shut up. You don't have any space here for that element. And in order to change those thought processes in the mammalian brain, you've got to start talking positive talk to it, that positive self-talk that you need. And so whatever or how those are crafted, they're always crafted in first person. And the best time to say that is first thing in the morning and just before you go to sleep at night, because you have more control of that. So the mammalian brain is a very cool thing, because it's almost like, if you can change, this is like the holy grail of marketing, if you can change what message the mammalian brain is speaking, it can stop the lizard brain, because the lizard brain's got to learn that it's a win-win. And who controls the lizard brain is the conscious brain and the mammalian brain. And the conscious brain talks to the mammalian brain, which is the second brain. And in that brain, you can craft things that go from pain to pleasure. So if you take a simple example of dating, for instance, and keep on picking the wrong person to date, your mammalian brain is going to tell you when you go to meet a person who has that same energy, different body, right? It's just, my mother used to say, like, oh, put them in a blender and pour them out, they're all the same. And so, but if you take that, and she goes, you don't can marry any of them, it doesn't matter. That's what she used to say that all the time. And so, especially after she got divorced. But she, but the point is that, what you believe to be true will become true. So when you have a experience that is not helpful to your productivity and going forward in your life, you got to ask yourself, wow, what was that? And if I can identify what that was, what is the lesson I'm supposed to learn from that? And if you can stay in that my time frame, hang on just one second. That's not even supposed to do that. My telephone's having a psychic moment. And so so if you can change that, like that verbiage around and ask yourself those questions, you can funnel it down so that you're much more anchored. And so when stuff happens, it's like, okay, so, that happened. So what did I learn from it? And what do I need to do so it doesn't ever happen again? And if it does happen again, you go like, oh, I recognize that. Damn it. It happened again. And then when you get into the mode of being conscious about what your thoughts are, because you have to command your thoughts, it's essential and it's crucial to take command of your thoughts. Because when you can do that, you can project more positive outcomes. So like you can feel those, it's almost like you can tell the future, right? You can like, wow, I can feel it. I remember when that happened. So I'm just going to give you a real-time life example. I had a mentor who's taking volunteers in the class. There's 300 people there. It was a conference on a thing called neuroemotional tracing. At that time, that's what the course is called. And so he said, I need a volunteer. And I'm in the back of the room. And he says, okay, you can come up here. So he goes to work on me. And he says to me, an emotional issue, right, because that's part of your thought process, ties into a level of being, angry. And that anger has, for you, this is how he said, for you, not somebody else, for me, came up as being abandoned. And I'm thinking and go, I could see that, like my father with my mother, they got divorced. And then, and then he looked at me and he said, but the original time for you happened when you were about 2 years old. And I looked at him and went, I don't think so, but it could be. I'll ask my mother, because my father was already dead. You couldn't ask him. And he probably wouldn't even remember, wouldn't tie something like that into something. And so when I got a break, I went and called my mother up and said to her, tell me what happened to me when I was 2 years old. And she said, well, let me see, when you were 2, you got very sick and we had to take you to the hospital. You had pneumonia. And I go, how long was I in the hospital? And she said 2.5 weeks. Now you think about a 2-year-old kid that their parents take them to the hospital, and then they end up staying there. And they weren't allowed to visit. This is like way back when they didn't have, they thought all diseases were contagious. And so I ended up being there for 2.5 weeks in the hospital at 2. I can't imagine where I would ever have like an attachment or have that feeling about abandonment. But what he did, which was interesting, and I help my clients with this and I help people with this all the time, is to take the charge off of that, that emotion. So you never have to deal with it again. It isn't like it didn't happen. You're just not reactive to it. Because every time you're re-triggered by an emotion, then what happens is that re-excites the area in your body where you store that crap. And if you want to get rid of it, you got to get rid of the emotional component that triggers it. And how you get rid of it is you quell it. You have that lizard brain shut up. You have the mammalian brain created into a better experience. And then when that same kind of situation happens again, it now is a positive experience. And it's just and it's just putting that kind of piece of the puzzle together on, and you can, there's a lot of different ways to do it because people are reactive to time, space, event, or a thing. And so if you can tie it down to what happened then, and when was the time you felt like that beforehand? Because sometimes what you think you got isn't necessarily what you got.
Right.
On that component. So, how do you do that? You first identify, you think about what it is. You think, okay, and what is it? It's just like, have I ever felt like that before? And if there is, maybe you need to talk to somebody. Maybe you got to find someone like me, or someone like you who you can say like, hey, let's explore that. I had a client one time who was so mad at her husband. She wrote him 5 pages. And I said to her, 5 pages? I go, what's the first 3 sentences? So this is the mind, right? You talk about Pat. And so she read the first 3 sentences. He's never going to read it. And she said to me, what do you think that for? She was married to him for 17 years. And I said, has he ever read one of your letters before? And she said, no. I said, he's not going to read it. And I said, when you're talking to him, because of your way your relationship goes and everyone's there to learn something about those relationships, how old does he act when he gets upset? Now, men never think about this stuff like this, but I coach women to think in a little different fashion who want to have their relationships last and be more fruitful. But and so she just, gave an answer. She said 10 years old. And so I just went, great, craft your letter to somebody who's 10 years old. How many pages do you think a 10-year-old is going to read? And so she just said, 1, maybe. And I go, how about 1.5 max, right? I said, so pare it down 1.5. And the first 3 sentences have got to be something ultra nice. And appeal to your 5 senses, in his 5 senses. And then you say what you want him to do. And because that will make his brain go, huh, what? And then and then you follow it up with something nice again. And she goes, isn't that manipulation? I said, no, you're not lying to him about anything, and so you're not buffing it up. Or an ex-attorney friend of mine used to say, blow up the skirt. And I said, you're not doing that. You're telling him the truth, but it's getting him to pay attention in words that he understands in your own language. And so when you can do that, you can have these breakthroughs, in your careers, and your life, and, in every aspect of your life, so you don't have to be giving up yourself and you can have it all, as far as health goes, because when you have your health, you can like by far, withstand a lot more variances, and the stuff, but you've got to have a clear mind in order to do that.
Yeah. This brings up an interesting thought that I've had recently. Because I work with a lot of athletes, a lot of high-level athletes, and a lot of high-level athletes have just horrible, demeaning, belittling self-talk. Mm-hmm. But for a really long time, it's motivated them. They had a really bad game. They talked a bunch of shit to themselves, and so they went to the batting cages for 4.5 hours, and they worked out more, and they worked out harder because they were just beating themselves up. And that was their motivator to get them to a certain elite level. And that's not sustainable or durable for a long period of time for long-term success, especially when everyone is just as good as you. But these athletes get scared to lose that because they think that's their edge. They're scared to lose that sort of chip on their shoulder that motivates them and moves them. So this idea of having positive self-talk or credible self-talk or a mindset that is sort of better for them and more sustainable over a long period of time is scary. And so I say that to say, have you run into that with people you work in the high performance space, like executives and entrepreneurs?
All the time, and also, a lot of people, when you say that, it reminds me of, I used to, when I had my practice on Cape Cod, I used to go out with elite golfers. And I worked the LPGA in the medical tent, so it was interesting for me to watch people on that elite level baseball. I used to play golf with a couple old baseball players that were retired, but they never lost their edge for their ability to play a sport very well. That's always, to me, was very beautiful to watch that. But, when I watch golfers, and even I can remember one marathon that I worked, was probably one of the first ones that I worked. I can remember being in the YMCA in Boston and watching TV, and there was this American that's running his butt off, and he was doing really well. He was so far out in front of the Kenyan runners, and all of a sudden his right shoulder went up. And I went, he's going to lose the race. Everyone's going, what are you talking about? I said, his right shoulder just went. Where'd you see that? I said, Weren't you watching him? His structure changed because structures function, and when you get tired, it's easier to hurt yourself. A lot of people, like athletic injuries, are from dehydration and by what you're thinking. So when, and the canyon runners, I mean, I've seen those guys come across finish lines not sweating in like July on Cape Cod. I'm always thinking like, wow, is this like, they might be a little bit pearly sweat, but they're not dripping sweat. And I know what they eat. And so I always thought that was pretty interesting. But when you see and you take that over for like high performance, it's like people, you can be an elite athlete in the business world. And, as an executive and entrepreneur and business owners, but you have to have that mindset component in there also in order to do that. So like that self-talk is so important. That's why a lot of those people do their affirmations. They write them out, they visualize them. Women do vision boards. Men talk it out. They're so visual anyway. Whether it's in the shower, like what they're hearing, and their affirmations, besides the I am healthy, happy, vital, active, successful human being, blah, 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 whatever it is. They have their goals. They go to something, and like Think and Grow Rich or whatever that book is, that is their Bible that has that emotional tie-in to them. So when they have an off day, they don't let the off day bother them. They just go out and fix it. When I play, I used to play a lot of golf, and when I used to go out with my patients and, and clients golfing, I'd take pictures of them swinging, their structure and form, right? That posture part. And there's always that moment that you can see it in their face. You can see that one piece of their, like when they sit up, they're just like thinking something else. And it's just pulling them back in and anchoring them in present moment again, which improves their game consistently. And I've helped athletes do that. In golf, it was easy for me to do because I liked it, and and I just did it as a hobby then. Now I charge for it, but but it's interesting to see that happen. And there's things that anchor people. So I tell stories, that anchor. And, and then, do a couple, it literally takes me somewhere like from a minute to 5 minutes to reset somebody's mindset to continue on in the game if I'm standing there. And that I've never figured out how to do the golf game from a Zoom call. So, with somebody, but I love, your question, to answer that. I think there's, if you're an athlete, you're an athlete. It's just when people ask me as a sports physician, about, do you only treat people who do sports? And I said, a sprained ankle is a sprained ankle. Doesn't matter how you got it.
Right.
The better is how you choose to fix it, so that you have, as much function as possible in this little period of time. I mean, even look at physical therapy. An elite athlete gets injured, and they're in a PT like right away, and they're in there for 8 hours a day until they're better. You and I get injured, as a normal person, you're in there for 12 weeks. And by that time, you also have a lot of other inflammatory things that go on that could hinder, or actually improve, that range of motion and pain, the reduction of pain. Because having pain or not having pain doesn't mean you have functionality or having 100% of functionality. It's just pain's an indicator, that's all. It tells you something's going on.
Right.
Isn't that interesting? I love stuff like this. This is like right up my alley.
It's the best. It's the best. Yeah. So moving on to the second one, diet. I would like to know if you have any core like values that you think people should follow in terms of diet. What are the things that you choose to put in your body every day, if there is something? Anything along those lines.
Well, the thing that really gave me the impetus to like totally give up sugar is when I first opened my practice on the beach. I used to go to the beach in the summertime. I first was there and discovered I'm not a really sand person. But the book that I brought with me was called Lick the Sugar Habit by Nancy Richardson. It's an old book. And I never did the hair analysis as she suggested in it, but all her reasons way back in the late 80s were so sound about why you should never put sugar in your mouth. I took it out of my diet. It was like, it was a non-brainer. And I liked sugar before that. I wasn't a big sugar fan, but I mean, it's and I had like, when Easter came around, like that's where we're at right now, is basically, um, I would have, uh, I would have I loved white chocolate as a kid. It's so bad for you. But it's easy for me to give up. If I know something that I'm doing is hindering my health, I'm not going to do it.
Mm.
So, it's just like, what are those things, like I hydrate when I travel. It's easier for me to be on an intermittent fast when I'm traveling than it is, even if I'm going to a country that has great food like Italy. I just don't eat pasta. It's not something that I actually like gravitate to. And if something doesn't make sense to me, I just don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm always I'm reading labels. You have to read labels. You have to understand what you're putting in your body as nutrients. And if you can't pronounce something, to me, it doesn't matter that you can't pronounce it. What matters is what the side effects are. So you have to know what those side effects are. Like, no, it's just like, come back to me tomorrow and tell me why they're putting sodium dioxide with lemon. They don't have to do that in order for it to store in the refrigerator. There's many brands that don't use other chemicals in order to do that. So there's some things that if you use them once, it's not poison. But why would you purposely put poison in your body?
Right.
And recently somebody asked me for an opinion on something like in muscle, like Botox. And I said they use Botox in the trenches, to kill rats during the Second World War or the First World War, whichever one it was. But the thing is that, nobody really knows what long-term use of Botox does in a muscle. But it interferes with ATCH, which is acetylcholine, which is an activating neurotransmitter to make the muscles fire. So if you keep them in the same muscle, putting Botox in, at some point in time, that muscle's going to not work anymore.
Hmm.
And you can't put any more Botox in that muscle. So what are you going to do? You're going to start using filler? I mean, and there might be some times where that's appropriate, but I'm just talking about obvious things that are that don't make sense. And I'm always looking at something else I specifically do is I look at how I combine my foods, and so I don't put if I have like a steak, I will put steak with green leafy vegetables, asparagus, artichokes, things like that. And I watch what starch, I'm not a starch potatoes, and that type of thing. And I also eat as, much organic as possible. About 4 years ago, I changed my diet to being 100% organic. If I had a choice of buying organic or non-organic food, I always bought organic. My grocery bill went up $1,000 in 1 year. And that's when it was not the inflation that we're seeing now. But I have followed that rule religiously, and also for when my dog was alive. My dog lived 7 years past his prime. In good shape. He had an exposure to something that did him in, but before that, he was in good shape going up and down steps, and had good musculature, but his breed only lives till like 10, 11 years old, something like that. And he was just died when he just over 16. So he,
Wow.
But I did lifestyle medicine with him the whole time. And that was and the same with people. So I always think like if people fed themselves as well as they feed their dogs, they probably would be a lot healthier.
Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of people feed their dogs wrong.
Yeah. I try and follow 3 rules when it comes to my eating habits. And it's eat real food, don't eat processed food,
3.
and don't drink my sugar.
For sure. You never want to drink your sugar.
No, like it's all, I mean, I don't do a lot of sugar candy, but sometimes I like a little candy, but I think those 3 things have really helped me a lot. And just in terms of eating like quality food, real food, stuff that doesn't have a bunch of weird names in it that have just been created in a lab over the last 10 years that shouldn't be inside of a 50. Human body. 50 years.
Duncan Hines.
I take like a mental note of what foods make me feel good and what don't. I also use a positive mental approach when eating foods that I know are nutritious for me. telling my body that they're nutritious for me. Like, this is good for me. This is nourishing me. This is helpful for me. So I get into that mind body connection of like, this knows that it's good for me. And now the next time I eat it, it like craves it. It wants fruits and veggies. It wants a nice piece of meat. You know, it wants something like that, or whatever or some legumes or nuts or beans or whatever the case may be is. So obviously, as you know, the positive mental attitude falls into every single one of these deeply.
It has to.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we're so much on the same page. We could probably like have, help your elite athletes have even, more incredible, extraordinary results, just based upon the two things that what you know and I know put together. But you said something, when you're going through that list, it's just like, do I ever eat sugar? Because I think I really watch where my source is for that. And, I used to have when I had chocolate, I used to have 85% chocolate, and I gave that up recently. It says recently came out with a report that a lot of sources that I've used and trusted for dark chocolate, because dark chocolate's not good. Under 85 is you waste your time eating it, but over 85, it actually has digestive support for you. But you have to check the source of the chocolate, because a lot of them have heavy metals in them, and so and I haven't found a dark chocolate to replace the one that I used to buy at Trader Joe's, which had something like 256% more cadmium, and that. So there's a lot of heavy metals. The heavy metals pass through the gut lining very easily. And when the liver gets overwhelmed and can't process them, it stores them in blood, brain, bone, and fat. And so, that is a huge problem. And then also things that are high in the glycemic index. I mean, you talked about not having sugar, like direct sugar. Direct sugar's got to go to, the liver in order, because it's fructose. And fructose doesn't get assimilated in the gut. It gets assimilated and handled by the liver, which is where some of the problem for, like, in some fruits lie, especially like sweeter fruits and that type of thing. And that, so you have to, like, if I have a sweet tooth, where is that sweet tooth from? Where was I a child? Did my mother give me sweets in order to quell my, like, if you be a good person, be a good girl, you can have this. When I grew up, my mother gave us rhubarb, and which was very bitter, or tomatoes instead of sweets, because we had much more of an area that we had we grew vegetables in the summertime. And in the fall time we had apples. Like, go get an apple, or go get a peach. Occasionally we would have peaches, or never have nectarines. I never figured that one out. But, but fruits, you have to really watch how much fruit you're eating. People think that they can eat equal amounts of fruit to vegetables, or they like, 5 servings of fruit or vegetables. It's like, no, it should really be 4 servings of vegetables to 1 serving of fruit, in my opinion. And because people can have too much fruit in their diet, and usually when I work with somebody, I don't let them have any for the first month. And then they go back, and then you can really taste what you're eating, and go like, do I really like this?
Right.
And you talked something others that you just said that was interesting, very too, that I practice also myself, is that I only eat foods that I gravitate to, not that I crave, but gravitate to. So, like, I don't gravitate normally to avocados. I could care less if avocados exist. And, and when I was looking at my blood type, I was like, there's a list of things that, what I tested through my blood, through a friend's clinic. And I just found it interesting. All the stuff that I don't normally gravitate to eat were all on the list of things I should probably avoid. And I just went like, oh, isn't that interesting? So that's what I have, and it just say, like, that test made sense to me. Because, a lot of times we think foods are healthy. They're supposed to be healthy for you. If I'm ever in a situation, I do something else that's similar to you too. If I'm ever in a situation and I can't control what food I'm eating for whatever reason, I'm traveling, I'm at some airport, I say Hail Mary or whatever, and and I bless the food. I look at what appeals to me, order that food, and I bless that food for my highest good. and allow my body to utilize what it can nutriently out of it, and the rest of it can discard. And I believe that happens. So when I do that, I don't get sick or anything else like that. And if when I gave up like frozen yogurt, which everyone thinks is a health food sometimes, and the first time I ever went to go taste that, again, I got stuck at an airport, and I wanted something cold, but I wouldn't drink Coca-Cola or have something from McDonald's or something. And so I had this, and I was sitting there and having it, and the guy sitting next to me said, "You look like you're so disgusted with that." And he goes, "What is it?" And I said, "It's frozen yogurt." He goes, "Oh, I love frozen yogurt." And I said, "Here, you can have mine." And he took it, and he finished it off, and he said, "Why don't you like it?" I said, "I can't stand the taste of it. It tastes like I'm eating plastic." But I haven't had it in a long time. So if you're eating it, and you get accustomed to that, and that's your norm, you wouldn't recognize that unless you actually held yourself back away from that, and then when you go back into some foods, you're thinking, whatever possessed me to eat this to begin with, and then it's easier to make those decisions about what to eat and what not to eat, and how not to go forward or whatever.
Exactly, because you've actually figured out what makes you feel good, what you like, how your body operates at its best. You know what your best actually looks like. And all of these questions can be answered. You just have to take a little deeper inventory on yourself and your life. You have to be an active participant in who you are and who you want to become, instead of just sort of doing the thing that everyone else is doing and eating the same foods. And, it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society, right? It's like,
Absolutely. That's beautiful. You should coin that.
So it's a quote from someone. I just forgot who it was. So I didn't say their name beforehand, but like, that's the truest thing like that you can be said, right? It's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And so a lot of times the thing you do, the thing I do, the thing a lot of really healthy people do is seen as like going against the grain. Like, no, I don't drink alcohol. What's wrong with you? Why don't you drink alcohol? Well, because it doesn't make me feel good, and it's a toxin. Is there something wrong with you? Were you an addict before? No, I just don't drink alcohol. Like, what I mean? People look at you like that. Like, why don't you don't want to have dessert? Why aren't you having candy? Like, why are you getting a good night of sleep? How come you're not grinding or working hard? Like, all of these things seem like so odd, but they're just like the basic tenets of trying to be your best and be energized for life. Like, how am I supposed to have this great conversation with you if I didn't get a good night of sleep? I didn't put things in my body beforehand. I didn't take a few deep breaths before we hopped on so I could have clarity of mind, right? All of these things just help me perform a little bit better. And now people tend to then over rotate it and say, well, this is such a structured, rigid life. Like, how am I supposed to have fun and be free? Well, I can do all of those things because I feel more energized about life. I'm excited to wake up.
And it is fun for you.
Exactly. And that's the definition of fun.
Right.
Right.
Somebody asked me about alcohol one time, and my ex-husband's French. And so what I learned from him, and this is where he told me when I got divorced, that he goes, there's things that, that you've learned that are probably bad things for me. And I said, oh, what's that? And he said, you're a coffee snob. I am. He said, you're a wine snob. I am. And he said, and he goes, and you're just you're aware, you're by far much more aware, than, from, it's not like because I met him, became aware, I think because of our energy, because he was a physician also. And he had such vertical intelligence. You could ask him a question on like CBD, 20 years ago, and he could have talked to you for about 5 hours about it. When he learned a subject, he learned it very deep. And so he always had the way of explaining the deep part, and I could take what he said for deep and I could make it in so that anybody could understand it. And so on those pieces of the puzzle in our relationship always worked very, very well. And he was incredible. His father was a great chiropractor, osteopath, and physical therapist. And, he was a very talented doctor. And he has this vertical wisdom that he always brought to the table about nutrition and about health. You can, every once in a while I still ask him, what do you know about And, he'll come up with, it's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And it's like a whole like email page. But it's really great to have those things. But the thing about the wine, though, wine has to complement your food. And a lot of people, when they have wine, the wine's already acid and it's already bad. So when you have something that makes your food not digest very well in your stomach or have the ability to utilize it better, then then the alcohol is harming you. It's not doing you any justice. But you can take specific, and especially in France, the specific things with certain foods, not drinking a whole bottle. I mean, their glasses are like, I showed you my glass where I have for coffee. There's like, a little bit of wine just to complement the food, and it acts as a digestive, and that type of thing. But, just wanted to make a point for those people who do drink a glass or two of wine or something like that, that you're drinking it with the right mindset. Because if you have the right mindset, then you metabolize your food and you bless your food, right? I mean, you should always, because you're feeding, your body's a sanctuary. And like you're a Ferrari, right? So you feed your Ferrari, supremium, petrol and fuel in order to fuel it and keep it to maintain a certain level. It costs you a lot less money in the long run.
Absolutely. Next one is exercise.
Okay, sorry.
One of my...
Ooh, that's yours.
Oh, that was me?
No, exercise is your thing.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I love exercise. It changed my life. Like, really. It's probably the number one thing that changed my life when I was 14 years old. Mm-hmm. So I believe in it wholeheartedly. And it doesn't matter what sort of exercise. For me, I gravitated towards lifting weights because it helped me look better and perform better on the baseball field or in the wrestling ring. And now it's like a fabric of my life. It's like who I am is like someone who goes to the gym. But I've added other stuff like yoga and walking and jujitsu and things like that to explore my body a bit more. But what do you do to move your body to exercise, Dr.
You're going to be so excited when I tell you this.
Okay.
Usually where I live at right now is I live in the morning. And that ritual thing is I go to see if there's manatees in the intercostal. And so I walk, some mornings I walk only. But my goal is always to walk 2 miles. And sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. Depends upon if I have. Mondays for me are really hard to do exercise. But I was really excited about this. I found a 21-day challenge for endurance and flexibility and strength. And it's not like next door to me, so I have to go to it. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to get back into that level of performance so that when I go to pick up a golf club this year, again, because I haven't played in 8 years, that I play well, and that because structure is function. So if I want to create better function for myself, then I want to be able to do that intensity and I want to increase that endurance. So these people were so nice to me that they gave me a week complimentary. And I'm going to do that starting Thursday morning at 6:30 in the morning, and then for a week, and then I'm going to Mexico for a Global Women's Summit and Business Conference and retreat.
Wow.
And then I'll be down there for a week, and then when I come back, I'm going to do the 21-day challenge. And
Love it.
I'm so psyched. And I am really psyched about that. I was looking at because I have done, I like bar class because in bar you can really tone really quick and get a lot of strength. Even from one class I can see a difference. And, but the bar class where I'm at, the people who own it, I can't deal with. It's just forget about it. And so I was looking for plan 2. And then there's a woman who's, I only never heard of this method, but I have an interest in her after I do the 21-day challenge and hanging out at their place because it gives a combination of the strength, those kind of classes that are very similar to bar that I really like, But what I like about the challenge is 30 minutes. it's going to take me 35 or 40 minutes to get there to do a 30-minute thing and then get back in my car and come back and do my day. But I'm really looking forward to that. And when I was 13, 14, like you, I decided that, my sister was getting married, and they measured me for a dress that was the same size that my mother wore. And how you like view yourself and see yourself. I never considered myself fat, and I just like when I got measured for that same size dress that my mother wore, I was horrified. And I decided that I was doing intermittent fasting way back when, before anybody invented it. and that's what I decided was my best bet to do. And I stopped eating sugar naturally, no sweets, ice cream, or anything else like that. And I had one really good meal, a lean protein with a bunch of vegetables. When I was 14, I figured this out. And I danced to a song called Indigata the Vita every day for 18 minutes. I did exercise to it. I did sit-ups, pull-ups, everything, like to that song every day until I got down to the weight that I wanted to be. And I maintained that weight for about 30 years.
Wow.
Never was. And so, and that's where my 10 pounds is going to go, is down the drain. And so I'm really excited about this thing. So I thought, when you talked about exercise, I thought, oh God, you and I are on the same page too.
Yeah, I'm fired up for you. 21-day challenge is awesome. But I'd also like to hear more about this before we get to the last couple, about this Global Women's Summit. That sounds pretty awesome.
It is. It's my mentor, coach mentor. Ask in December, is anybody interested in going down to Playa del Carmen for a business retreat? And that's how it started out. And then he decided that probably the buzzword was Global Summit but it's all executive women who are, coming together to take a decompress. And this is a 5-star resort and all inclusive. And it's like I'm looking, forward to that. I get to see a couple of my friends that are in that same group with me that are coming from your side of the world, kind of from Texas and also from up near Washington State. And so it'll be really great to have that camaraderie and to be able to just put your hair down and just relax too at the same time. And so the one thing that I know is I always walk away with information and connections, because one of the pieces of the puzzle that I talk to, probably not enough, but I talk to it as community. And community is so important because that's what pulls you in the days that I'm not going to feel like getting up at 5:30 to leave the house at 6 o'clock to get to the 6:30 class. It's just like, that's when community pulls in. It's like, who's my accountability buddy?
Mm-hmm.
Who do I've got to pick up along the way because I can't say no. It's like, I don't feel like getting up today. That's not an option. And so that's what I get from, being part of his group and meeting really phenomenal people. Because of him, I was able to talk on stage with Les Brown back in December. As I was featured on a panel. Les Brown was on his own thing, but Sharon Lecter and Rob Goldman, who's the anti-aging person, who's the head of the anti-aging, right? Bob, I always call him the wrong name. They were there, so that was really a great event. And then he was there too. He's a renowned global speaker himself. So it was, that's where that community comes in. There's people who I met from there I can call in a nanosecond, and somebody will be back on the telephone with me for that reach out like in less than a day. When can I get on the phone with you? So some of the friendships that they are, since I've been involved with him, I'm hoping they last my lifetime. And that carries you through. That's important. But that Global Summit, other than what's going to be discussed about it, he doesn't tell any of that stuff until you get there. It's just like, hey, come and jump into the fire. This is going to be a good one.
If I were to add anything to my 4 pillars of health and your 5 pillars of health, it would be, relationships. It would be community.
Yep.
But I sort of put that into the think well aspect. And I think having a positive mental attitude encourages and invites really good relationships. But just to make it clear, I think that's another pillar of health. It's like creating
Community.
real, genuine connection, encouraging authenticity, being vulnerable and courageous and truthful, and showing up for yourself, because, you can have other people to show up for you and vice versa. And you have friends who call you out on your shit and who hold you accountable and who pick you up when you literally can't walk or you've fallen down. And, that just enhances everything else you do, because then if you're around people who are striving to be their best like you, then having a positive mental attitude or thinking well or eating the right foods or sleeping or exercise, it's all part of a cohesive group. Because maybe you go out to dinner and everyone is prioritizing sleep and they're like, okay, guys, it's 9, it's time to go home. We all got to get up early. So, you're just part of a group who encourages that sort of behavior. You go to restaurants that encourage nutritional value and have good real foods to eat, or whatever the case may be is. But outside of all of that, just having people, just one at least person to say that they care about you, they love you, they see you, gives you permission to see that in yourself. And I think that's the most important thing.
I did a post in Facebook. I probably did it on LinkedIn too, but it's just like, it's just like people for me that I want around me are people I can call up at 4:00 in the morning, and they're there.
Yep.
That's my kind of community.
Yep.
Not that I would only do that if I was overseas or something like that, or very rarely, but I always, if I hear my telephone ring, I always answer it.
Yeah. I mean, it's an emergency.
That's what you do. It might not even be an emergency.
Just might be a late night phone call.
I was in Leicester Square the first time I ever went to London, and at 5:00 for a happy hour there. Well, it was like 5:00 there. It was like noontime, and my girlfriend was my best friend at the time was taking a nap, and her husband said, "She's sleeping." I said, "Wake her up. She's going to want to get up." And and he said, "But she's sleeping." I said, "No, wake her up." I said, "She's going to want to hear this, and I'm not calling back." And I said, "This is costing me." That was like $5 a minute, and so she gets up, and I said, she goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm in Leicester Square." She goes, "Oh, how cool is that?" And I said, "Very cool." It's huge. There are more people in Leicester Square at 5:00 at night than there are all of Boston. And I said, it is a wall of people moving around. It was just mind-boggling to me. And she said, "Wow." And she goes, "I wish I was there." And I said to her, "Well, I'll go party for you. I'm going to go to a pub." And just as it happened, I went in and sat down, and these people came in. And you think of like nothing is by chance, right? And so the whole crew of MTV in London sat at my table, and we had a blast. It was just, and I could never have figured out how to meet those people, before that, but they were all just like sat down. And so we all had, a beer or whatever somebody was like drinking, and they were so much fun. They're going, when I got up to leave, they're going, no, we got your table. It's okay. You can stay. You can stay. I'm going, "It's okay. Fine." I go, here's some free passes. Come down and see us tomorrow. It was so great, but it's just like the people you want, the people that you can call up at 4:00 in the morning, who thinks is, like, "Wow, what can I do for you?" Are you like, "You want me to come get you at the airport?" Okay. I don't think anything of like going to an airport to pick somebody up. It's just like you do something that you do. You do that for your friends.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. Last two, sleep. Any tidbits, nuggets of wisdom, protocols you have for sleep?
Sure, make a room dark. And if you can't make your room dark and you need it darker, wear blinds. And then if you can't go to sleep, then sit up, turn the lights on, and ask yourself, what is it that's bothering me? Or what is it that is on my mind that I need to do? The best question is ask yourself, is there something you can do about it right then and there? And if there is, then you get up and you do it. And then after you get done doing it, then you give yourself permission to fall asleep. And so if you do that, and make sure that the room's cool enough, it's not too hot, you have ventilation, those are just really simple things. And if you can't do something about it, you can always dictate in your telephone. You can always, and when I tell people to and teach multitasking walking in the morning, so you can set your goals, do your gratitude, journal, actually exercise and be focused on that exercise. Those are just some of those things. But for sleep, you've got to have you have to have a bed that fits your body, not your body fitting the bed, and pillows, not too many pillows underneath. I have a new theory. I'm teaching a pilot course starting tomorrow. We're having a Q&A, and it's all about facial exercises, like for this part of your body and up. And we took pictures of people with pillows underneath their head, like back here with their chin up. And it's just like, all this gets so fluffy. I'm going, well, you don't use it, you lose it, right? So if you have, pillows that are propping your head up and you don't move your head while you're sleeping, then those muscles of flexion are going to get weak. And your head's going to go forward because your head weighs about 11 pounds. So I'm going like, oh, and then, so it's one of like the bonus exercises of like, how do I take, what's the exercise I can do to help improve my strength of my neck muscles, so that, my head sits over my shoulders correctly with my ears over my shoulder points, which are over my hip points, which is where the femur heads are at, in your knees and then your ankles. When you have that, you have pretty good posture and that. But that's what I would go to for that.
Yeah. Sleep has always been an interesting one for me. I've always sort of not been a good sleeper, so I've been trying really hard over the last couple of years to make it a really big priority in my life. And one of the biggest adjustments that I make was training my body and my brain to know that when I walked into my bedroom, I only did two things in my bedroom. I only sleep or have sex. That's it. So my body knows that when I go into my bedroom, I'm not exercising, I'm not watching TV, I'm not running around, I'm not doing anything. It knows that I'm only doing two things, and it can know like pretty right away which one of those two things are going to happen, right? I live with my partner, so that's what we do. So my body, and it's like the same thing with diet. So my brain and my mind and my attitude have been trained that when I go into my bedroom, my body is now preparing to sleep. I watch TV or do whatever thing active outside of my bedroom. And when I walk into my bedroom, there's only two possible options. I'm going to sleep or I'm going to have physical intimacy.
The thing is, so I told you I was in an Airbnb. So the thing in this room is that my desk is part of my bedroom. But my rule is that when I shut my computer off, my computer stays off until the next morning. I don't turn it on in the middle of the night. I don't, and going to sleep, on my telephone. Part of the thing about my telephone is I don't have, I have it on airplane mode, because I don't want to have the extra, EMFs. And, so I create my bedroom to me is always my sanctuary.
Yeah.
It's just like where I meditate, where I lay down if I need to power nap, it's where I do that. But I only sit at this desk when I'm working. I never sit at this desk other than that. And when I do that, it's just like, it's clean. Right now it looks like a nightmare, but when I shut my computer down tonight, all my papers will all go in one pile folder. It's for me to go through the next day and go like, what do I have to do? Like, did this happen? Did that happen? And I scheduled free webinars today with my business partner for a free webinar we're going to do about high performance health in May, and then deliver it probably in June for walking into summer with high performance, that kind of thing. And just like, going back and always like looking at the basics, but I get that, like the compartmentalization that needs to happen. Like, what do you do in bedrooms? You sleep, you have sex, and it's just like, I never had a TV in my bedroom. I don't watch TVs in bedrooms. And that I always think that's a great way to ruin a relationship, is turn the TV on. It's just like, and so I don't even own a TV. I haven't owned a TV since I had a TV like in 1986. And then when I decided one day I wasn't going to pay for whatever the box, that comes with you, especially down in Florida, when I went to acupuncture school to get my master's and my doctorate in Oriental medicine, and that I'm going, I'm not paying $175 for freaking, for, Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi, it's only cost for $39 of it. I said, I'll pay the $39 of it. I went back to the basics of it, and then, I watched movies. I mean, but I don't watch them in my bedroom.
Right.
And it's just like, and I don't, I'll listen to a book in the room, and I'll read, maybe sometimes in the morning for around 20 minutes. But other than that, I mean, I'm very religious about, those particular areas, and being organized. But I commend you on that. There's not very many people who do that. So bravo.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, not to say that me and my partner are perfect in that, right? But that's our goal. That's our North Star. That's our guide to do that. And if we do it together, then we can hold each other accountable for that. And so that's really quite important. Any closing thoughts on posture that we haven't touched on?
Well, you need hydration for everything. Every one of the 5 pillars I talked about, you need hydration for. So hydration would be approximately 50% of your body weight in water. If you don't like to drink water, it's not that I don't like to drink water, but this is a good exhibit. Here's my AG1 bottle, and I'm drinking this with a straw because there's sediment that's in the bottom, and I don't want to drink it all at once. But you can drink water with a straw, and you can drink more water. If you don't like the taste of water, you can put lemon. You can put essential oil of lemon or lime in it. They're similar to each other because when you do that, you can absorb more nutrients for your digestion. If you have a bloated stomach, you can take a little bit of lemon juice and water so the water's cloudy, like the same size as this cup. And those kind of things. So posture is important because when you have good posture and you have the hydration, it holds your organs in place. Nothing drives me crazier than to see somebody who has really bad posture walking. So I'm going, oh my God, it will take me forever to fix that. And then also who has bad posture, just slump. You can see the forward head tilt. For every, I think it's like 7 degrees or something like that, it's 10 pounds per square inch on each cervical vertebra. It's just like, do your exercise to have that posture. You'll be able to breathe better, and all your organs will function. That's when your Swiss watch of your body is functioning at 100%, and all those pieces of the puzzle have a better ability to do that. And so posture is essential. You can't do sport. I mean, when I used to coach people in the gym about training, I always used to tell them, forget about looking down, look where you're going. Pretend you're outside on a treadmill and run. Your feet will know exactly where to land. Always watch your posture is important. When you're stretching your shoulders, when you're doing, some opening up your shoulder work. If you want to straighten this piece of your head out so you have better posture, you can take that little styrofoam that roll and put it right across your shoulder blades so that your head part of it is going back, and just resting. You don't even have to move. And you can decompress your spine, but you've got to watch. You have to know what the structure function part of that is. So having somebody like your partner or somebody who you work out with who can sit there and tell you that your head tilts forward, bring your head back, put your chin down, so that you have, you're functioning better, because then you won't be exercising a dysfunction, because if you exercise a dysfunction, the dysfunction gets stronger, it doesn't get better. So and that's why the posture part of it is the big chunk of that. So posture is king or queen, whichever side you're on.
Yeah. I love the posture piece. I love that's a pillar of health, not only for the functionality of our body, but I think it has a deep relationship to our mindset, because like I tell people to just embody a superhero pose, your chest up, your shoulders back, think Superman. And what does that tell you, right? It tells you that you're powerful and grounded, because we're not always going to feel confident, but we can behave confidently, and we behave confidently through our posture. That's thing we can control. I can control to have my shoulders back and my chest up and my chin up. And it tells my body something. It's sort of like the idea of fake it till you make it. I don't love that terminology, but it sort of works in this context. That's what you're telling yourself. Yeah, I might not feel confident heading into this situation, into this conversation, into this game, but I can definitely behave confidently because I have control over my actions and my posture. and now we're functioning at a high level through all of that stuff. And I think that's very important when it comes to our body language or our posture.
Mm-hmm. For sure. You can tell a lot about somebody by their posture. So when I ever walked runway, and after I sold my practice on Cape Cod, the Spirinist was putting on a show, and I met this woman in Marshalls, and she said, "You should come try out." I haven't worn high heels in ever, and so and I had like 2.5, 3-inch high heels, and I was trying to walk down this catwalk, and she comes running up to me and grabs my hips, and she's going, "Swish, swish," and she goes, "Keep your chin up," and it's just like my body just went. I was like, and then it just went in sync. And it's just like, but it was like my brain felt disconnected from my body, and that moment before she did that. When she did that, modeling turned into being absolute, just a sideline fun thing to do. But you have to be able to have that structure. You can see that in any model, whether it's male or female, when they're walking down that runway, or wherever they're at, and people used to come up and say, "Are you a model?" in Boston. And it's like, this week. This week, I'm going to show this week. I go, catch me next week. You might not see the same person, or you might not recognize me. But it was a ton of fun. And people are like, you're way ahead of your time. And it was fun. Boston was a young town. You had to be a young person to be in the modeling industry in Boston. They forgot that there were baby boomers. There, and they changed their tune a couple years after that. But anyways, it was a lot of fun. But you have to have good posture. Don't you remember they used to put books on top of your head? And then they would tell you to put your hand, only one hand should fit behind the small of your back in the wall. And, and it's just like, and so when you walked, you kind of like walk with like foot over foot, and you had more stability. And all models, interesting. This is an interesting piece that I learned from one of my people from, my his name was Dr. Shu. He's in Miami. He taught us some Tai Chi, and so he taught us about stability. And where people have the best stability, and there's a technique in chiropractic called SOT, and SOT talks about low back pain and sharing of the SI joints, which is where the sacrum meets the ilium. And so in Tai Chi, that same motion of having one foot, like in ballerina pose to the second, I think it's the second position, where one foot is slightly ahead of the other, creates immediate stability going up from the ground up. You can, and it's harder for you to be pushed over. So a lot of people stand with their feet equal side to side, and you can see them shifting back and forth. But the person who has the stronger stability, more in their spine, is somebody whose foot is slightly ahead of the other one, like in this kind of position. If you can get what I'm jesting at, or look up second or third position in ballet. That's the exact same position, but Tai Chi is a position also. And you could always tell by what category somebody was in. You're born in category 1. They say that you die in category 1 in SOT in this technique. Category 2 is when you're functional. That's like your mammalian brain. And then the third category is when you're having trauma, like when you have like sciatica, or you had a traumatic accident that made, all your muscle spasms and stuff like that. But, it's just an interesting concept and how a lot of those thought processes overlap with each other. Interesting.
Yeah, very.
So,
okay, I have one final question to ask you. It's the second most important question outside question number 1. But before we get to that, where can people go to find you, to learn more about you, to ask you questions, to hear about the stuff you're working on, to get some coaching from you?
Well, if somebody wants to find out just more about me, they can text to 26786. They can text lifestyle, and that should take them to my webpage, which is healthteamnetwork.com. If they're interested to find out how their body's dealing with toxins in their environment and whether or not they're a candidate to do a detox and what the health status of their gut is, they can text the initials MDQ, so like metabolic detoxification questionnaire, and that will give you those 2 questionnaires. I don't ask for your firstborn child in order for you to do that. It's just, in order for you to get it, it's like, here's your phone number. And then, there's ways for you to reach out to me. So there's ways on my health team network. LinkedIn, if you're on LinkedIn, it's a great way to reach out to me on that. On my website, you can ask me a question on my homepage. If you scroll down, there's a microphone. You can click on the microphone, and you can actually verbally ask me a question, and it will come to my email, and I can answer you back, from that. And how to work with me, I have a work with me page. I coach virtually. And I also make personal calls, and I also help out, in small group coaching. And then I have a concierge mastermind, which is kind of how I take people from where they're at and keep them where they're at so they can maintain a certain level of mental wellness and health, and also their mindset, so they can keep those mindset mastery things like, I'm glitching. What can I do? And you can also have that, so you have me 24/7 on those kind of things and that. But I'm happy to help you out. I love to help people and have fun and see them thrive.
Amazing. Yes. Go get after Dr. Pat, find her work, talk to her, ask her questions. That's how we connected through LinkedIn. So it's a beautiful source. So go to the website.
And if they're interested in the book, you can get it on Amazon. It's called Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired? It's a workbook, a guidebook, and an advocating tool. And it's a book of questions so that you can discover your weakest link and your strongest links, because you've got to know what you're working with, right? And then you can show you exactly where to focus your time, your energy, and your money. And so that you can get unstuck with a quicker, safer method than putting yourself at risk. It's a good thing.
Fantastic. LinkedIn, website, and book are all linked in the show notes, so click those right now. Okay, Dr. Pat, here's the final question.
Oh my goodness, for another one.
If you were going to put up a billboard and millions of people were going to see this billboard every single day, what would you put on it?
I would put on that billboard I was trying to think of how I would construct it though. I would tell people to tell themselves that they love themselves every day. When you go into the mirror in the morning and you're looking at yourself, if the heart, this is in Chinese medicine, the heart houses the mind and the mind houses the soul, and the windows are the eyes to the soul. Know yourself well. Just tell yourself every day when you look into the mirror, in your eyes, that you love yourself. Like, I love me, and then you can go out and do your day.
That's beautiful.
Thanks.
That's really beautiful. Thank you for having this conversation with me. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your insight. I appreciate your time, Dr. Pat.
And I appreciate you. This was a blast. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. See you next time.
Bye.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning into that episode. And if you enjoyed it, click here for another full-length episode of the podcast. And please, don't forget to subscribe. But above all else, most importantly, please take good care of yourselves and others. And I'll see you next time. Lots of love. Cheers.